Hello and welcome, fellow devs, DBAs, and data nerds, to another episode of Data Discoveries. I am SQL Dev DBA, and first and foremost, I want to thank all the folks who have subscribed recently. I really appreciate you doing so, and the content is for you, so I'm very glad that you are enjoying it and getting some use out of it. Welcome again to another episode of Data Discoveries, where we take data sets from the internet and we import them into SQL Server. Then we make Power BI reports from them, start to finish. So let's get started with today's data set. So I was on Reddit recently. There's a subreddit called Our Datasets, where I like to browse and look for dataset ideas. That being said, if you have any ideas of your own for future datasets that I can work with in future episodes, please feel free to submit them my way. I have several different ways that you can submit those ideas, and I'll put them down in the description below this video. So I was on Reddit. I was taking a look at a couple of different posts for datasets, and I stumbled upon this one in which the user Mecha Sparrow states that they have curated a data set about CVS Minute Clinic. So I thought that'd be pretty interesting. Once I click the Kaggle link, we get to the Kaggle website where they have a full description of their data set. And I saw a couple of the columns that they had in it. It seemed rather interesting. And so I went ahead and downloaded the dataset. The dataset itself comes with one CSV and one Excel file. Both of them are fairly identical, except obviously one of them you can open as a CSV or import it as a CSV. The other one you can open or import it as an Excel file if that's what you prefer. For this particular episode, I'm actually going to do something a little bit special. What I'm going to do is I'm going to import the file into Power BI as a CSV, as an Excel, and from SQL Server. We're going to do all three. I'm going to work with the SQL Server one, but I'll show you how you don't actually need SQL Server to build Power BI reports. All you need is data from some source, whether it's a CSV, whether it's Salesforce, whether it's an API, whether it's Excel data. You can still build Power BI reports from all sorts of different data sources. So let's go ahead and get started by checking out the files that I downloaded from this Kaggle website. So the first one is the CSV. So we're going to take a look at that really quick with Notepad++, as I like to do. And we'll see that we have several columns here, including store number. So that must be a unique store ID. Then we have a Minute Clinic ID, which seems to be a unique Minute Clinic ID. So we're going to keep those in mind when we're checking out our individual identifiers for the report. We have an optical clinic ID. We have several indicators, it looks like. Banner brand indicator, which from browsing some quick data here seems to be whether or not it's inside a CVS pharmacy or whether it's inside another store. Browsing around here, I don't see any other stores, but there could be some others. Oh, here's one, inside Target. So we're going to get to see data for Minute Clinics inside several different banner stores, so that's going to be fairly interesting. Then we have quite a bit more data, including the name of the Minute Clinic, the provider identifiers, some address information. That's going to be really good. And what looks to be here, like phone numbers. Phone numbers are great as well. Some descriptions. It looks like some store hours. Some additional indicators here, including services provided. That's pretty cool. And what else do we... Oh, look at that. We have geographical data. That's pretty cool. So next to the address, we have latitude and longitude, which that's going to be really interesting for Power BI maps. So that's pretty cool. All right. So you can also take a look at this data set in Excel if you prefer. Let's take a look at how that looks right now. It's basically the same file. It's just you can open it with Excel if you like. So this makes it a little bit easier to see all the different columns that we have, which we have quite a few. If you look, we get quite far into the A's there, so that's pretty great. I'm excited to start taking a look at this. All right, so let's start importing it into SQL Server. Now, before I do, I just want to take a second and talk about the SQL Server that I'm running. I don't have some $3,000 server. I don't have some $5,000 server. My SQL Server is just a micro PC that I bought on like Amazon for $300. It's a small little box, about yay big, and its sole purpose is to run things like SQL Server and PowerShell, and host a small amount of Office apps. And so what I mean to say is, if you want to practice on SQL Server, which you absolutely don't have to, as I'm about to show you, because I'm going to load this as a CSV and as an Excel. If you really want to practice on SQL Server, technically speaking, you can install SQL Server Developer Edition, which is 100% free and includes all of the features that Enterprise does. You can install that on a $300 micro PC, or you can install it on a laptop that you happen to be working with. Obviously, SQL Server has some resource needs, you can say, because of the fact that it requires memory, it requires disk space. But that's not to say you need to go out and buy a $10,000 server just to run SQL Server or do exactly what I'm doing here. And if you need any other assistance installing SQL Server or just speccing out a small PC, please feel free to reach out to me, and I will do my best to help out. You can go to SQLDevDBA.com and drop a message there, or I'll put some other ways to contact me in my description below. All right, so let's get back to importing this data set. So I love DBATools. I don't know how many times I need to say that. I love using it for importing, and that's exactly what we're going to do now. We're going to use DBATools to import these files, or this file, the CSV. So the first thing we're going to do is go to dbatools.io and go to the commands section. We're going to search for our trusty friend, import DBA CSV. DBA CSV. There it is, import -DBA CSV. And basically what it's going to allow us to do is import 1 or 100 CSV files. To do so, I'm going to borrow, I believe it's this command again, which is get child item, and then import the CSV file. All right, so we're going to get child item. We're going to include a path of the of where the CSVs are, or the one CSV that we have right now. We're going to tell it what instance of SQL Server we're going to import into, and we're going to tell it what database. And I think we can also tell it the table name that we want. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Table name, I believe it's called. We'll find out. It's either going to yell at me or it's going to execute correctly. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is to tell it what directory we're in. I happen to have a directory set up, so I'm going to try that now. And I believe we need a trailing slash here. Yes, the fact that it's pulling up my files leads me to believe that it recognized the directory successfully, so that's really good. Let's go ahead and move on to the next command, which is the instance. The instance is going to be the SQL Server that I am importing this into. I can't memorize this thing by heart. As you can see, it's a very complicated server name, so I'm not even going to try. I'm just going to go copy and paste it from the server itself. All right, next is the database. That reminds me, I need to go create a database for this data. So we're going to create a new database in SQL Server. We're going to call it CVS Data. That's a fairly simple name for our database. We're going to give this database to SA because we are good noodles and we want to make sure that our database lives on if one of our users gets hit by the lottery, as Breno Ozar likes to say. We're going to make sure our file locations are okay. This one happens to be on the C drive. I don't usually recommend that you put databases or data in the C drive. However, it's the only drive I have, again, on this $300 micro PC, so I am okay with losing this data if my hard drive goes bad. The only option I'm going to check at this time is making sure that I set my recovery model to simple. I don't need to back it up every 2 seconds. I am okay with either one backup a day or no backups at all, if I'm being honest. If you're not okay with one backup a day or no backups at all, you might want to think about changing the recovery model to something like full, which will allow you to take frequent backups. But for this particular exercise, we don't really need a database that gets backed up all that often. All right, so we're going to go ahead and create our database called CVS Data. That way we'll be able to import our CSV file. Okay, so we have our new database. It's called CVS Data. I'm going to refresh our databases just so it gets here up at the top. And we're going to say our database is CVS Data. And let's name our table. We're going to name our table CVS Minute Clinics. And let's try to run this thing. See if it works. And no. It looks like table name is gonna yell at me indeed. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna strip this away. Actually, no. Let's give it a shot and see if we can find the table name. Oh, it's just dash table. Just dash table. So we'll go ahead and change our table name parameter to just dash table, and hopefully it'll let us get in. All right, so it was able to import the data. There's about 1,000 rows, and it took about 4.3 seconds. So let's go check our SQL Server instance to see if we have our data. All right, and we have our table called CVS Minute Clinics. That is great. We're going to go select top 1,000 and check out our data, make sure it made the trip okay. Yes, it looks like it did. We have our store number. We have our Minute Clinic ID. Looks like we have an optical clinic ID. That's pretty cool. Store types. Looks like they're all zeros. Oh, no, wait. Here's a 1. That's pretty interesting. I'm hoping that there's some sort of description for the store type, but we might not have one. We'll find out. All right, so we have other columns such as COVAX indicator. I'm assuming that's a COVID vaccine indicator. We have a banner brand indicator, which this is going to be useful because it's going to let us determine whether or not the CVS is a standalone CVS or it's inside something like a Target. We have, oh, there we go. Yes, here's the description. Inside a Target, inside a CVS pharmacy. We have some provider numbers, and that's pretty cool. If we're making this report for like a provider and they just want to know a list of minute clinics that they can send prescriptions to, for example, or that they can refer patients to, that's great. We can use that as well. Here we have some address information. That's good. We have city, state, and zip, which we'll be able to use for Power BI maps, actually. So that'll be great. And then we have a couple other indicators, such as whether or not they're open 24 hours. They have a prescription service, a photo center, optical service. Okay, that's great. We have a distance column, which I'm not really sure what that does, but seems pretty cool. If we can figure out how that's used, and that'll be, I'm sure, quite useful. And then we have some store hours. We have reason for visits, which is a list of reasons you can probably go to this minute clinic. And then we have lots of store hours. Looks like Monday through Sunday. And also minute clinic hours, Monday through Sunday. And pharmacy hours. That's pretty great. All right. Looks like we have some break hours too. So non-NP, maybe non-patient break hours, 1:30 to 2:30. All right, so let's take a look. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set this data up to be consumed by Power BI. But remember, we're not only going to consume it in Power BI through here in SQL Server, we're also going to consume it in Power BI through the CSV that we use to import and the Excel file. Again, we just want to show that you don't need SQL Server to build a Power BI report. SQL Server is just one of the many data sources that you can use. So let's go ahead and get started with our SQL Server view. The reason I like to use views is because I like to go back and add columns. I like to make customized columns, and while you can do that in Power BI, if you do it in SQL Server, you can take that same customized column or that same function column, and you can actually use it in any other reporting platform. So if we were to create another report in SQL Server Reporting Services or Power BI Report Server or even Crystal Reports, I can't imagine why you would want to create a report in Crystal Reports right now, but if you happen to need to do so, you can do so with the same exact view and you'll get the same exact results that you will in Power BI without having to recreate any custom functionality that you did. Same goes for filters. If you want the report to not have as many columns, you can omit some columns from the view, and those columns will never show up to whatever reporting platform you're using. So to do the view, we are going to strip away this top 1000, and we're just going to go ahead and create view. And we'll call this view VW CVS Minute Clinics. Oh, that's not how you spell clinics. There we go. And we'll say as. I like to create my little comment gardens that tell folks who are reading this in 5 years who created it and why. So we'll do that very quickly. Want to make sure, there we go. Create a date. We have the 4th of March. Created for. We'll have data discoveries episode 2 here. And description is returns list of CVS Minute Clinic locations. I assume this is US only, just because I don't see many locations. Yeah, we just see US states here, US zip codes. Okay, so since we're about to build this view, I want to take a second to customize a couple things. For example, I don't like using zip code. I deal with international data on a daily basis for my day job, and so I don't really like to use the word zip code. In most other places, it's just a postal code, and not only that, it usually comes with letters. And so what I want to do is right off the bat just create a custom column for the zip code. I want to make sure that if there are any postal codes, that they're read as alphanumeric characters instead of just trying to get a number in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cast this as a varchar, and just to be crazy, we'll give it 20 characters as postal code. So this is going to do a couple things. Number one, it's going to allow for alphanumeric characters. Number two, even for zip codes, there are many zip codes in the United States that start with a leading zero. A leading zero. What does that mean? That means that if you simply cast this as an integer or as a float, as whatever other numeric data type, you will lose that leading zero, and then your zip code will look something like this. We'll call this column bad zip code because you don't want those. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to really quickly comment out this code, and we're going to run this. And let's take a look at some of these zip codes. Here we go. Right off the bat, you can see this. Zip code 07030, which is in New Jersey, is just 7030. Same thing for 7646 in New Jersey. There's states, I believe, Massachusetts, maybe Delaware, Puerto Rico, all of those have leading zeros, sometimes multiple leading zeros in Massachusetts and Puerto Rico's case. So we want to make sure that we leave these leading zeros here. And to do that, all we have to do is make sure it's cast as a varchar instead of as an integer. If you have an integer that you need to add leading zeros to, you can easily do that with functions such as the left function and the right function, and simply padding numbers. If I find a need to do that, I'll show you a bit later on, but for now we're going to try to roll forward here. All right, so we're going to go ahead and create this view so that we can consume it in Power BI. If we need to come back here and add any customized columns, we'll do so, and we'll make sure that our Power BI report can consume from them. All right, so we'll go ahead and deploy this view, and the view is now deployed. What I want to do is roll on over to Power BI and see if we can consume it. All right, so we're here in Power BI, and what we're going to do is we're going to go to get some data. Now remember, we're going to grab this in 3 different ways. We're going to grab it from SQL Server, we're going to grab it from a CSV, and from Excel. So what I want to do is hit the Get Data button, and first we're going to import our Excel data. Now I already have the folder selected here, so I'm just going to select the the Excel, and click Open. And what it's going to do is it's going to pop open the screen that allows me to choose whether or not I want to transform this data. I can also, since it is an Excel file, I can choose which sheet I want to import from the Excel file, which is something you don't get from CSV, so that is pretty cool. However, I only have one sheet in this particular Excel file, so I'm only going to choose that one sheet. Now here it does give me the opportunity to start transforming this data if I really want to. I'm not going to do that. This is just for demonstration purposes to show you can import from Power BI or from Excel into Power BI. So I'm not going to transform any data here. Normally anyway, I would load it into SQL Server and transform it there just so I have some repeatability in case I go to the other systems, as I mentioned prior. I'm going to go ahead and load it. And soon we will see, once it's done loading, I'm a bit impatient, as you can see. All right, 1057, I think that was our row count that we got when we were importing into SQL Server 2, so we know it's done. We just need to give it a second. There we go. Okay, so store, it just says store. I'm going to rename this, so I'm just going to double click on it, and I'm just going to call it CVS Minute Clinic, and I'm going to say XLS, just so I remember that it's the Excel version. Then we're going to go back home and get some more data. See if we can find a text CSV. Yes, there it is, CSV. So now it gives me the option to import my CSV file. So I'm going to open that. And here it shows me the CSV data automatically. Now it gives me again the option to transform. I'm not going to do so because I do all my transformations in SQL Server. But if you wanted to, you could transform the data here. So I'm just going to load the file. And we'll wait for that 1057. There we are. So it let me load the file here. I'm just going to rename it to CVS Minute Clinic CSV so I can keep track of them and know not to use those for my Power BI report. All right, and last but not least, we're going to load some data from SQL Server. So to do so, we're going to click the SQL Server button. If you have it in your recent sources, you can also do that. I'm just going to start quote unquote from scratch here though. I'll copy my SQL Server name. I'll bring it over here, and the database that I want, I'm going to choose import because I want my data to stay with the Power BI report, and I want it to load a lot faster. With direct query, the data will only load as fast as your SQL Server is, or as fast as your queries are inside that SQL Server. So I want to make sure that I only select import for this particular file. So let's see if we can find a list of data sets to get. And we're going to go into our CVS data and click our view. We don't want our table because the view is the one that we can customize. If we just picked our table, we have to do all our customization within Power BI. I want to be able to do that in SQL Server. So we're going to go ahead and load that. Got it. All right. And since it has the VW, I know it's coming from SQL Server. I'm not going to rename that something like SQL. You can, if you'd like to, just to keep things easily identifiable. But for me, that VW tells me it's coming from SQL Server. All right, so let's start bringing data in, and let's start seeing what we get. What I like bringing in, as always, is just a quick table. So almost like a raw table like you would get in an Excel file. I'm just going to start bringing in some columns to see how the data looks. I'm going to close this filters pane so I can have more real estate. So the first things I want to do is establish things like our ID, right? What I can do is I can actually do that in SQL Server as well. So if I go back to SQL Server, I can just query how many unique IDs there are versus how many unique records there are. So I'm going to go ahead and open the table back up with the top 1,000 records. And I'm going to go in SQL Server and I'm going to ask it, give me the unique values for store number and the unique values for Minute Clinic ID. So that'll be a count distinct of store number and a count distinct of Minute Clinic ID as unique Minute Clinic ID, and we'll have this one as unique store number. All right, let's run that and see how many we get. Both of them are unique. That's great. All right. So to confirm that they're truly unique, what I like to do is just count star as count all, or whatever you'd like to name it. But this tells me how many unique store numbers, how many unique Minute Clinic IDs, and then how many records in total. If these records have the same number of unique IDs as the total number of records in the table, I can tell that they're unique. So that is great. We're going to go ahead and bring in both of those identifiers, which are Minute Clinic ID. And what was the other one? These are in alphabetical order, not in the original order that they came in, so I have to look for them a bit. So I'm going to change it to be location ID and then Minute Clinic ID. And then I'm going to make sure that I am not summarizing, because Power BI has a tendency to want to summarize everything you're doing. We want to make sure we're not summarizing those. Okay, so very next thing we want to do is get that, I think it was the banner. Here it is, banner brand indicator and banner brand description. That is, again, where the store is it inside the target, is it a standalone CVS, etc. And we're going to, again, make sure that they're not summarizing. Great. There was one more column in there that told us whether or not the store was inside. It was like more of a description. Minute Clinic name. That's the one that we want to look for. Minute Clinic name. So let's take a look there. Minute Clinic name. Got it. All right. So right off the bat here, I can say that I want a couple cards that are something like how many minute clinics are inside targets, how many minute clinics are inside YMS. I'm so sorry. I have no idea what that is, but I'm assuming it's some sort of supermarket or other location. However, it seems we have several of them. So I'm going to create a couple things from this particular column here. Number one, I'm going to create a slicer. So the banner brand description, or actually the minute clinic name, which seems to be directly represented. No, the banner brand description is the one I'm going to use as a slicer. So let's do that really quick. Just a reminder, you can use the search bar up there. Banner brand description. And I want to make sure I'm not using the ones from our CSV or from our Excel. My entire report's going to be built off the SQL Server brand. So there we go. We're going to import this into the white space, or just drag it into the white space. And then we're going to make it a slicer. Now I want to save some real estate. I could very well leave it like this, but I want to save some real estate. So what I'm going to do is go into the slicer settings, and I'm going to make sure it's a drop down. That'll keep my slicer nice and small. And it'll allow folks to just extend the slicer instead of having to have this huge selection pane. So I like to have a multi-select with control disabled, and I like to show a select all option so that folks can simply click to choose and to select and deselect instead of having to hold control down. Not everyone knows that trick, so I want to make sure it's easy for the users. I also want to enable one more thing, which is the search option. To do that, we just click on the ellipse up at the top and click on this search button, and that will allow folks to search for a particular value. This isn't super important right now because we don't have a lot of options. However, I'm about to add another slicer for things like state, and there are quite a few states in the US. I'm at least 50. I see Puerto Rico as an option as well. Possibly Virgin Islands, Alaska, and Guam. So I want to make sure that I do have a search functionality available for our users to use. All right, so I want to do one more thing to this visual, which is set the background color. That allows me to play a little bit of Tetris with these visuals. So I'm going to set the color to something like gray, and then I'm going to set the transparency to about 90%. That'll give me a nice soft gray background. I'm going to do the same thing for the table that we have here. Set the transparency to 90%. Now we have a gray soft background. What this does is it doesn't intrude too much and it doesn't make anything stand out, but it does allow me to set the alignment of these visuals a lot better. So I'm about to copy and paste this visual because I want to immediately use the same exact visual for the state. So let's see if we can add the state instead. Here's the address state. I'm just going to drag that right in here and remove the banner brand description because we don't need that. And so now we have a full list of states that we can select from. Now, because of the fact that I copied from this original slicer, all of the settings I chose, including the search function, the drop-down function, and the background, they all get inherited by this new one, so I don't have to keep customizing it over and over. That's one of the tips that I can offer you is if you find some settings that you like, make sure you create at least one visual that way, and then you can just keep copying. I'm going to do the same with the cards that I'm going to create in a second, so you'll see what that looks like. Let's go ahead and rename this banner brand description to something like storefront type or location type. Maybe location type is a little bit better. Location or store location. And then this will just be the state. Now, since I have the states here, why not bring in the city as well? These slicers that we have here are actually hierarchical slicers. So what that means is that I can simply add the state and expand on the state, and here we have the cities as well. So if I want to just select specific cities within Arizona, I can do so, or I can just select the whole state of Arizona. Either way, the hierarchy really helps us keep organized. I don't have to add another slicer for city. I can just stack these values together. Do we have a country that we can put on top of this? Let's see, country. We do. So we're going to click this slicer again, and we're going to drag country up at the very top, because the normal hierarchy is country, state or province, city, maybe zip code, that sort of thing. So we're going to name this country by double clicking it, and now we have the country. Okay, so US is, as I suspected, the only country here. However, we're going to go ahead and just expand it by default. That way, when we deploy the report, at least all the states will show immediately, instead of you having to click on the US to expand it, which is really the only option anyway, so there's no real use to do that. Let's see if there's any other information that we would need here. We're going to close out that. We have the address information, so let's go ahead and add the address. So here's the address line. Good. Then we have the state. We don't need the country in this grid. It'll just be useless information at this point because it's all in the US. If we anticipate in the future we'll add more countries, then of course we would have it, but for now we don't really need it. All right, here's the city. Oh, we have a city description too, it looks like. That's pretty cool. Is that the one we use for this? To check which fields, you just kind of have to hover over. You click the slicer that you're doing or the visual that you're trying to inspect, and then you just hover over whatever you renamed it to, and you'll see the raw field name, which is address city description text. Okay, this is the only city. That's cool. Great. All right. So we're going to rename a couple of these fields in the grid to location ID, Minute Clinic ID. Oh, let's double click here. Minute Clinic ID. We call this store location indicator. Is it really useful to have this here? I don't think so. So we're just going to remove it. This is just an indicator. We know what these indicators have right here, or what they mean right here in this next column. So I'm just not going to add that. That'll just create real estate that we could use for other columns. Store location. Then we have Minute Clinic name. This is location detail. We'll call this location detail. And then we'll have address, city, state, and I think there's a zip code around here. There it is. Zip code. Oh, no. See, zip code is only showing in our CSV and Excel. Before I mentioned that I renamed this to postal code. So the way we see it coming in here is just postal code. So we're going to keep that. We'll just add a space at the end right here. All right, great. So now we're going to create some cards, I think, that'll allow us to get very quick numbers about different attributes or different attributes about all of these stores. So what we want to do is something that displays that 1057, right? The unique locations. So to do that, all we're going to do is add a simple card here, and we're going to say we're going to use our location ID for our unique locations. So if you notice, what it does here is it gives us first location ID. Now, that's a bit odd. And it really doesn't let us do anything mathematical, like a sum or a minimum, a maximum. It just says first and last. The reason for that, if we click over on this column here, we'll see that the reason for that is because the data type came in as a text. Now we're okay because all we want to do is get the distinct count of values, which is 1057, the one that we wanted in the first place. But if for some reason you need a minimum and maximum, let's really quickly hop over to SQL Server, where I'll show you how to convert this into a integer value so that you can get that. So what we're going to do is hop on over to SQL Server. We're going to go back to our view code. I'm going to go ahead and comment this out because we don't really need it. We proved that we have 1057 unique values, so that's okay. What I'm going to do right here is for the store number, I'm going to cast it as int. And then we're going to keep the same name just in case. In Power BI, the columns that you bring in from your views or from your sources, they have a particular name. And when you ingest them into Power BI, it remembers that name. If you go switching the name of these columns, Power BI is going to hiccup a little bit, and you're going to have to re-add a lot of your visuals or recreate a lot of your visuals. So I like to make sure that I keep the names the same exact ones as when I added them. So the only thing I've changed here is I have a cast on the store number. And that's not my view code, so I'm actually going to go pull it up. It's right here. Cast the store number as an integer, and then we keep the same column name. So let's do that. To alter this view, I'm just going to click create or alter, or I'm just going to type create or alter. If you have SQL Server 2016 or above, this will work. Otherwise, you'll just have to say alter view instead of create or alter. All right, we're going to go ahead and create it or alter it. And then what we're going to do in Power BI is we're going to go ahead and refresh our view. So we're going to right click on this SQL Server view, and we're going to say refresh data, and we'll wait for it to do so. Now, if everything worked correctly, what we will have is when we click on this location ID again, it usually will change over to an integer. It looks like this time it didn't. Actually, this is not the column, is it? This isn't the column we modified. We modified store number. Location ID is over here. So let's do that. Let's see if we have unique location IDs and what the location ID is. So I'm just going to copy and paste, and it'll create a duplicate of this line. And I'm just going to type in location ID here. And let's find out if we have unique location IDs. 1057 as well. That's great. So we can use location ID if we wanted to. We can use store number, we can use location ID, or unique Minute Clinic ID. All of them are unique. So we're going to go ahead and switch, just to prove my case earlier regarding changing data types. Let's make sure that the data we're about to switch over to an integer is indeed an integer and not some text that we're about to mess up here. Where is that column? Location ID. Location ID is column 50, so it's about halfway in. Location ID, here it is. All right, so it looks to be text, or sorry, a number. So that's great. We're gonna go ahead and cast it. If you're not at all sure, you can always use try-cast. The problem with try-cast is it's never going to fail on you, so you'll never know if something actually didn't work. Instead, it will return null. So if it was unable to cast it as an integer, you'll just get a null value back. Sometimes that's a good thing if we want to make sure our data is kind of foolproof or our report is foolproof. but it doesn't really let you know that something's wrong unless you go looking for nulls. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword. All right, so we're going to cast this as an integer as the location ID. And when we alter our view, which seems to be taking a while, there we go. When we alter our view and go back to Power BI and refresh our data set, what we should see is the data type change. So I'm going to go back down to location ID. And now it's a whole number. So it was automatic. I didn't have to do anything in Power BI. It just switched by itself. So that's good. All right, so we're going to, again, customize this one card, customize my first visual so that I can just copy and replicate that over to my subsequent visuals. So unique locations, or just locations is fine. Locations, and I'm going to change the font size because I don't think this needs to be so large. I'm going to change it to about half the font size everywhere. And then we'll just make this 10 instead of 12 here. All right, and hopefully I'll be able to borrow the gray background from these other ones. To borrow formatting or borrow the style, you just click on the visual and then you go to home and say format painter. You'll get this little paintbrush, and then you can just click it to format whichever visual your target visual is. All right, so it looks like we were able to copy our style. We're going to make it slightly bigger, and then we're going to copy this visual once more. Now, we have a total number of locations, but what about locations? Locations that have let's see, in-store pickup. Okay, see, this is an in-store pickup flag, and we'll drag it in here really quick just to see. Okay, this is just a simple yes, no. Do they have in-store pickup? I can actually leave this right here in this grid. In-store pickup. But I want to show the total number of locations that have in-store pickup. So what I'll do is I'll click this visual here, and I'll click the filters, and I'll drag this in-store indicator store pickup. Is that it? Let's find out. Is that the one I just dragged? I believe so. Yes, indicator store pickup. I'll drag that in as a filter on this visual and this visual only. Oh, it didn't let me do it. Let's try again. There we go. And then I just want to select a yes. So this will tell me that 964 locations accept in-store pickup. Okay, so that's good. So I'm going to change the title of this. Locations with W, maybe W. In-store, no, just store pickup. Store pickup. We want to make sure it all fits in there. So, yep, there we go. All right. How about, there's lots of indicators here, right? So we can definitely use those. What about things like, I thought I saw optical. What about things like optical? I want to know how many optical minute clinics we have. So let's do optical clinic ID. How many unique optical clinic IDs we have is probably easier. Or it looks like when there is no optical clinic ID, then it's is that 0 or parentheses? Let's take a look at our data and see. Let's run our SQL Server data and we'll see, hopefully, optical clinic. Yeah, it's just 0 when there's not one there. So basically the filter we can use is the optical clinic ID. Let's go to advanced filtering. Is not 0. Is not, and then we'll just type in 0. We'll apply. And we have 9 that have an optical with optical clinic. Does that all fit? Yes. Yes, it does. All right. So what else? I saw that there were some store locations here. And let's browse around through and see if we can find some unique ones. Oh, actually, no, we have a couple here. But what if I just want to target ones? How about target? Yeah. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a visual or a card that just shows the total number of minute clinics inside targets. I like to have a little bit more real estate here, so I'll close a couple panes up. So let's say this is the field I'm looking for is store location, and that's not the name of the field, right? We renamed it, so I'm going to hover over here, banner brand description. So I'm just going to search for it, banner brand description from here. So I'm going to filter this by banner brand description. I'm going to remove the optical filter because I don't care about that filter anymore. That's just for this card here. And we want to make sure we do the same thing for that one. I forgot to do it for this one. So here I was just looking for optical clinics that also have in-store pickups. I want to make sure I don't confuse anyone. I need to remove the indicator store pickup filter. There we go. So now we have 12. And then we'll remove this optical filter here. And we want to make sure that we select target only. So we'll select target only, and there are 47 locations at target. So we'll say locations at target. All right. And let's see what other indicators we can do. I think we have room for like two more cards, something like that. 1 and 2 more. Yeah, 2 more is okay. And then we'll stretch them out a little bit just to see, just to get a full row across the top. Okay, so 2 more. Let's see what other indicators we can find here. Indicator for flu shot, indicator that it's a CVS store. We're already doing that. Photo center is not bad, but these are minute clinics. So we're not doing full CVS stores here. If it was full CVS stores, then maybe people would be looking for for photos. I don't think really anyone is. How about WIC? A WIC indicator. Let's do that instead. So does it support WIC? We want to make sure we remove our target one, which we already have, and now we say locations with WIC. Okay, great. Locations with WIC. Great. So are there any other indicators here that we can use? I thought I saw another one for like snap indicator. There it is. And I'm assuming this is the similar snap as WIC, the food stamps one. So I think I'd be fairly interested to know which ones are snap support. Okay, so we'll remove our target again, and we'll click yes. Okay, 971 locations with snap. Ooh, snap. There we go. All right. So now we have a full grid down here, and then we also have our banners, our card banners. So what we're going to do is we're going to stretch these out a little bit so that we can have a full banner across the top. I'll make them slightly longer here. I'll make this one slightly longer as well. Slide this one over and make it slightly longer. If you want to make sure that they're the same exact length, there's a little trick in Power BI that you can use. If you go to the if you click on one and go to the visualizations pane, and then click on the formatter, and you go to general, you can go to the properties, and you'll actually see the exact width. So you can see that this one right here is 98 pixels high, 204 pixels wide. If I wanted to set up all of them to the same exact width, I would simply say 204 here, 204 here. If you want to get really precise about it, this is how you would go about it. So let's make them all 204 first, and let's see if we can get the spacing right. Sometimes that doesn't really work out as well as you want. But in this one, in this particular case, I think we might be able to get it to work. So let's align this closer to the left, and we'll align the grid to the left as well. And then we'll start moving things around a bit. So here you can use your arrows to slightly move your visuals if you want, which is what I like to do when I'm starting to get a little bit precise or a little bit finer in the detail. So here, let's see. I think this is good enough for spacing. You want to try to get as even as you can across the top. And again, it's really great to have that gray background. Even if you end up removing it later because you want them to be different, or you want them to be just simple and white, that's fine. But having this slight background really helps out. All right, so we're also going to select them all by holding Control and clicking all of them, and then we're going to move them down to be very close to the grid. Why? Because we want to make room for our eventual banner that we're probably going to put at the top there. All right, so we have our two slicers for store location, and then we also have our address, or location information. You know what though? Why not put this zip code here instead? If I go in here and I'm just looking for a particular zip code, we definitely want to be able to provide that for our users. So let's try our zip code as well. Nope, it's not zip code, it's postal. All right, so we'll put our postal code here, and that way, if I search for one of the postal codes like the 00 something, 00, there's some 00s in California and Connecticut, DC. So there's it actually brought up anything with 000 or 00 here. So if I do like 009, which I think are some of the first zip codes, or 006, I think are some of them. So like Georgia. Nope, that's 3006. 009, 5. Ooh, why is that not coming up? Oh, 009 would be Carlsbad? Nope, 900. Okay, that's very interesting. I thought we saw some, so let's look for the 00s that we saw in SQL Server, and let's see if we can get them to match here. So I'm going to say where is this our zip? Yeah, this is our table, so we can still refer to it as address zip code. So instead of address zip code, what we actually want to do is refer to it in our view as text, right? Because otherwise we may not be able to get the value we need. So we're going to select from our view instead. That's how Power BI sees it, so it is how we should be querying our data. So we're going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to press Control-Shift-R to get rid of all those red squiggly lines by refreshing IntelliSense. And then I'm going to say where. Let's do something simple like postal code, and then we'll use 00 to force it to say it needs to start with 00, but it can end with anything else using this wild card here. Nothing that starts with 00. It's quite interesting. What about something that starts with just 0? Okay, we have plenty of things that start with just 0, so that's good. New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Hampshire. Okay. That's very interesting that none of them start with 00, but I guess that zip code is fairly rare. Okay, so let's look for one in Connecticut that starts with 06. That's not where we want to go. There we go. Okay, 06. And Connecticut. There we go, 06401. All right, great. So we tested that theory, and that looks good. So what I want to do is I want to get rid of that filter. To do so, all you have to do is click on this little eraser and it'll magically get rid of every single filter you applied there. If you also want to get rid of all these expansions that we did, what you can do is right click on any one of the arrows and just say collapse entire level, and it'll collapse all of it, all of the states down to just the states. So that's pretty good. All right, great. So what we have is, let's see, we have the ability to add a couple more filters, or sorry, columns here to our grid. So we'll do that really quick. Let's see what other indicators will be like. This grid is actually a very good place for us to just stuff as many as we think the user might want. Why? Because technically this page can be the grid page or the detail page, which the customer will use or the user will use to maybe export out this data to Excel. Let's say they have the filters just how they want them, and they just want to analyze this list in Excel or pass it on to a customer, pass it on to a provider or a coworker. They're going to be able to export from this grid. So I'm going to put as much information as I can here that's pertinent. Things like, does it have WIC? So all those columns that I saw at the top, WIC service, SNAP, optical, there's the optical service. Okay, so we have WIC. We'll just call that WIC indicator. SNAP indicator. Optical service. And really anything else that we feel like adding to this, we can do so. How about something like a phone number, right? We want to make sure that the store's reachable by this list that we would have in their hands. So store phone number and pharmacy phone number. We can add both of those right here to the beginning. Okay, there's the PHMCY maybe, phone number, just to save on some real estate here. And then store phone, we don't need the word number here. We can imply that that's a phone. But if you look, this is what I was afraid of. The phone numbers are just a big int or text or whatever it is, but they don't really look very phone numbery. They just look like little blobs of text there, or blobs of numbers. So how can we make them a little bit nicer to consume? Some phones, for example, oh, I just removed those columns. Let's add them one more time. There we go. How can we make this a little bit easier to digest, these phone numbers? How can we just allow applications, for example, to be able to click on these and automatically dial the numbers? There's a lot of very smart apps, including the Power BI app, I think, that allows you to just click on something with your mobile phone and it'll automatically interpret that as you wanting to call the number. So what if we could do work on our side to make sure that it's shown and displayed as a phone number? Well, SQL Server will allow us to do that, and so will Power BI. I'm just going to do it in SQL Server because I prefer to do it that way, and again, because what I do in SQL Server will translate over to all these other reporting platforms in case we want to use those as well. So before I do that, I just noticed I haven't saved my report. Super important for you to save. So I'll just rename this page as detail. And then I will go ahead and save this report. Save as. And I'll call this CVS Data Analysis. All right, so we have saved our report. We have our detail page, which we'll make a little bit nicer in a second. But we're going to go ahead and create some better fields for this phone number here. All right, so we'll go back to SQL Server, and we have our view right here. So let's go find our phone numbers first. Phone. All right, here are the phone numbers. So here's what I want to do. I want to display this phone number. Well, let's display the data first, because it's a lot easier to talk about it if we display the data. And let's find the phone numbers again. There they are. Okay. So now we're going to find them in the grid. Here they are. I want to display this as a standard phone number would. In the US, we have the parentheses, the first 3 digits, which are the area code, and then the prefix, which are the following 3 digits, and then the last 4 digits. So let's try to do that, right? The phone number format I'm looking for is parentheses, number, space, number, just 3, dash, number, just like that is how I want it to show. So to do that, I'm going to have to employ quite a few bits of functionality. Concatenate is probably one of them, and then substring is probably the other one. Now I'm going to use substring to isolate and break out these numbers into their specific components, and then I'm going to use concat to put them together in the correct way. I'm going to concatenate those strings. It's concat just like Excel is. So first, let's go ahead and isolate these numbers. I'm going to leave this column alone just so that we can get the raw value. And then I'm going to change this to something like _raw, just so I can keep the column in Power BI if I need it for something where it only takes it as a singular number. That's okay. If I want to get like unique phone numbers or something like that, that's fine. All right, so I'm going to break this out. Oh, actually, to do that raw, I would just say as store phone raw. There we go. All right, so to break it out, I'm going to first get the first 3 digits. So I'm going to say substring of this, comma 0, comma 3, I believe, as store phone area code. Let's go ahead and comment this out up here so we don't unintentionally deploy this view. And let's go to our custom code here. There we go. All right, so what does that look like? Look at that. We have, 2 digits. That's not good. So we started too late. Started at 0, needed to start at 1, I bet was our issue here. So let's find out. There we go. 212, 212. So now we have our area code. Let's just go ahead and do the same thing for our pharmacy number, right? Why not? Take our pharmacy number and say pharmacy phone area code. There we go. So we did the same substring function. And what do you know? Now we have area codes, which is actually another data point that we can use for our report. Not only are we using it to break out this phone number, but we can also just leave area code as the area code and bring that into Power BI as just standalone field, as area code, because it's not been provided for us in the data set. So we just created another data point, which is great. All right, so what we're going to do is take that same functionality that we used to break it out into an area code, and we're going to put that around parentheses, or we're going to surround it with parentheses. So let's do that really quick. We're going to say concat, and the beauty of concat is that it allows you to use almost an unlimited amount of values that you can concatenate. In Power BI, the concatenate function will only allow you to concatenate 2 values at a time, unless you use something like the AND operator, which concatenates unlimited. However, if you want to use concat itself, the function, you're only able to group 2 of them at the same time. So you'd have to keep wrapping it in concat and concat and concat, and I don't want to do that. So in SQL Server, the concat function just lets you keep slamming stuff in. So we're going to concat opening parentheses with those 3 digits and then a closing parentheses. And then we should have this as, we'll call this store phone number, because we want the value in Power BI that we have right now to be replaced by this new value. So let's see what the store phone number looks like now. And now we can see that we have the store phone number. wrapped in parentheses. Great, so we have the beginnings of what we need. All right, so the next thing we want to add to this is we want to add the prefix numbers, right? So those are the next three numbers afterwards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the same substring function that I had up here and just copy it. And I think I want to start at number 4 and go for 3 more, right? So I want to break this out. We have this number here, for example. We want to break it out into the first 3, and then the next 3, and then the next 4. So to do that, this is 3 characters. So I'm going to start at the fourth character and go for 1 more. Or sorry, 3 more. So let's do 4th to 3 more. And we're going to make this comment a little bit longer so we can keep that there. All right, let's see what that looks like. What did we name it? Oh, we named it the same thing, of course. 646602. There we go. We trapped them. This looks good. Okay. We'll just call this store phone next 3 prefix. That's what those numbers are called, a prefix. All right, and then we want to get the last 4. So we'll call this one last 4. And then this will start at index number 7 and go for 4, I believe. Let's find out if that's correct. All right, so here's the area code, prefix, and last 4. 212, 213, no, 212, 221, 3844. Okay, we did it. Great. We broke them out. Now let's put them back together in that concat that I started building here. All right, so here is the prefix. We're going to take this prefix and we're going to say, okay, what we want to do is concat this opening string, but then we're going to continue that concat function and say add the space and then also add the prefix. And then on the next line, which I like to just have it organized. This can be one long line if you prefer. I just like to organize my stuff. So we're going to add a dash, and then we'll add the last 4. And hopefully we should get a full and complete phone number. Let's find out. Oh, we got a little error here. Let's see. Oh, just 2 commas. Looks like I anticipated too many commas here. All right, now does it look like we want it? Yes, it does. 212, 221, 3844, and we can validate with a couple other ones that that's correct as well. Great. So we went ahead and created our custom phone number right here. Now I'm just going to steal this logic for the pharmacy phone number below. So I'll copy all of this, and I'm just going to go ahead and comment these out. I don't really need the prefix or the last 4. The area code, that's useful, but the prefix and last 4, I don't really need them. However, I will leave them commented here just in case someone decides to stumble upon my code to fix something that I'm troubleshooting. They can easily see how I got to where I am with these phone numbers. Okay, so let's steal that code and use it for the pharmacy. And we're just going to steal the code and replace everything with pharmacy instead. So pharmacy phone number. All right. And let's see if that worked. So we have store phone number, pharmacy phone number. Oh, we have to rename that to raw, don't we? Okay, so pharmacy area code and pharmacy number. There it is. Okay, we have to rename this pharmacy one to raw. There we go, as pharmacy phone number _ raw. All right, so let's go ahead and deploy this. At the very top, uncomment the code, and we are deployed. So now we go back to Power BI, and again, we're going to just right click here and refresh. So now we should see a couple of things. we should now see lots more columns, right? We have that raw column, we have the area codes that we got, and if you look, our columns magically, because we had already added them, they magically transformed into our brand new one. So we didn't have to change a thing because we named them the same thing as they were before. And we instead renamed the raw version as the raw column, which we're really never going to use anyway, unless there's a critical need to, and so we'll do so. All right, so this looks pretty good for exporting now. This should give the user a pretty good list. We're going to go ahead and order this by location ID by just clicking on the location ID, and we're going to make the location ID a little bit nicer here. We're going to say minute space clinic space ID as well. All right. There we go. So we want to make sure our users have a good solid grid that they can use for their exporting. We're going to save our progress because we don't want to come back after a pizza break or something and come back to a restarted computer and all our work lost. So let's see. We want to add one more filter here, I think, one more slicer just to fill up a little bit more space. Let's drag these over. That slicer can be for, I saw a column I was a little interested in and I made a mental note about, which is the time zone. Store location time zone. I want to go ahead and add that, and I'll do so right here in the middle. So to do that, I went ahead and just copied, as you saw, copied this slicer because the formatting was good on it. So I'm going to drag this time zone field, and I'm just going to release all the other ones. Oh, I released way too many, didn't I? There we go. Okay, so store time zone. Why? Because that allows us to group a lot more than our country, state, and zip. If I want to group multiple states, like I want any store in my time zone. What if I live on a border city, for example, and a border city with another state, and I just want to search for a broader area than just my particular state? Then I can just search by time zone. So here's all the time zones, and if I want to just get all the ones in Mountain, I can get all the ones in Mountain. If I want to get all the ones in Eastern, I get all the ones in Eastern, Central, etc. Okay, so we have that, and that's great. We're going to go ahead and kind of try to start wrapping this particular page up a little bit. To do so, we're just going to create, let's see, a little bit of a banner. So we're going to insert a shape, and we'll insert a rectangle. We'll make it blue, and we'll just make it span across the top. Okay, and then we want it to go all the way to the back. We want to push it to the back. So what we're going to do is click View, and we're going to click the selection pane. That'll open the selection pane. We click on this shape, and it'll highlight it. We're going to double click on it and just rename it Banner. And then we'll slide it all the way to the bottom so that Power BI knows to leave it all the way back. Okay, so now we have it all the way back. We see our slicers at the top here, or above it. So we're going to rename these slicers a little bit just so we become a little bit more familiar. So we're going to name this one to Slicer Location, Slicer Time Zone, and Slicer, that's not how you spell slicer, Slicer Address. All right, so we can move these up towards the top as well. All right, and it looks like we want to have a soft background too. We don't really want this crazy blue here. So we'll go ahead and click on this, and we'll click on the shape properties. We'll open the shape. I believe it is in the style. Yes, here it is in the style. We're going to use the same gray. Same gray with a, what did I click, 95% or 90? I think 90. Let's open another one just to make sure. Effects, 90% transparency. But if you look, it still has that border. So we're just going to go to the shape, style, border, and just turn that off. And so now we have a very simple shape here. These backgrounds, it looks like having that double gray, even with the transparency, is kind of making them darker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually remove the backgrounds altogether from the slicers. So to do that, I'll just go click on the slicer, I'll click on effects and turn the background off. Background off, background off, and background off. So now we have a pretty smooth shape here, and we are okay. So I'm going to drag this down a little bit to see if I can get it to look a little nicer. There we go. All right, so we probably want to add like a title and a logo. I'll do that in a second. I actually just want to add another simple page for maybe something like locations, right? So like since we have some location data, I want to use the maps within Power BI because it's a pretty powerful tool. So we'll go ahead and do that by clicking the plus here. Actually, no, we don't need to click the plus. We already have a lot of these components here. So what we can do is we can just click duplicate, and then we'll just get rid of the grid and add some other visuals, right? So I'll right click on this detail page, duplicate it, and just call this summary and drag it over here. So the order is summary first and then the detail. And then I'll just kind of get rid of this grid. I don't really need it. No, I don't want to delete the page, just the grid, please. Nope, it's still asking me to delete the page. That's not great. So we'll go to the visualization pane instead. No, the selection pane. There we go. And we'll click this table, and I think you can remove it. Why won't it let me? Oh, there we go. Okay, now it let me delete it. Great. All right, so what do we want to add? How about like locations by the type right here. I don't really know how many are at CVS versus how many are at Longs unless I like click around and try to read the cards. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get a really simple pie chart. So to do that, I'm going to click open the visualizations pane, and I'm just going to add a donut chart right here. We'll make it about yay big. There we go. Let's see if we can steal the background from one of these cards. Format painter. No. All right, so we'll make our own background. And the settings I want to add, or the fields I want to add, are store location. So location. Nope, that's not the field I want. What was the field that we used for store location here? Banner brand description. I'm never going to remember that, aren't I? Banner brand description. We'll do that. Okay, so now we have our banner brand descriptions, and then we can use any identifying value for it. So if you remember from earlier, we checked a couple different things. Location ID is the one I've been sticking with. So I'm just going to say the values are the number of location IDs. I want to make sure I right click that and count the distinct ones. I always want to count distinct and make sure I'm doing it over here too. Yes, I am. Okay, so it looks like we did get the formatting from one of these cards actually, because everything's like 300, size 300. So we're going to dial that down. Let's go to the detail labels, I believe. Nope. Yes, values. And then we'll make these like something like 10. Yeah, there we go. This is readable now. Okay, and so now we have we want to stick to a little bit of a color scheme here, right? We want the CVS and Target to be different reds, maybe, just so it looks nice. So to do that, what we'll do is we'll just click on this pie chart, and we'll say the slices. So the slices are going to be dark red for CVS, right? Dark red for CVS. Ooh, Target is also red, right? So we should do, let's do something like, I don't know, yellow for Target. Sorry, Target, you're getting yellow. I don't know what any of these other ones are, but CVS are the ones that are red. So we want, since this is a CVS branded report, we do want to make sure we prioritize CVS, and then we just want to make sure we get the title looking nice. Now Power BI has dynamic titles. If you look, they're just named exactly what the fields are called. So the title changes dynamically. So what I'll say is this is locations by store location type. There we go. So maybe we want to change this to store location type as well. All right, there we go. So now we have our pie chart, and it tells us that it is pretty dominant on CVS with Target following closely behind. Cool. All right, so map. I really want to get a map going here. So we have a couple different options for maps. We can either use our latitude and longitude to get a precise value, or we can also use things like the state, city, state, zip code, etc. So let's first try it using our latitude and longitude. Now to do so, I'm just going to create a map here. I'm going to try to align it as best as I can. Again, we're going to play a little bit of Tetris here every now and then. All right, and now when I click on this map field or map visual, what I see is location data. So this is where I would put my city, my state, my zip code, and then here is where I would put my latitude and longitude. So let's try that. Let's just search for latitude. And let's search for longitude. All right. There we go. So we do have our latitude and longitude did allow us to get specific locations. Wow, that is very specific. That's pretty cool. All right, and if we hover over, we should see the latitude and longitude, but let's add a couple tooltips so we know exactly the store we're looking at. Let's see if we can add something like an address. Oh, no, that's just the bubble size. We'll add it to the tooltips, and we will say first of address. We'll call that address, and then we'll say here's the city. We'll say city. That's not how you spell city. City. Let's see if that worked. We're gonna zoom out a bit and find some. Did we lose all of them? Looks like we did. Oh, we lost our longitude. Sorry, I must have clicked away there. Let's do that again. Let's add longitude again. All right, so now we go in, and if we hover over some, yep, we can see precise locations. That's pretty cool. We can see precise locations and the address and city. We may as well add zip code here. Postal code, postal code. There we go. Okay, so now when we hover over, now we can see specific locations, the address, and the postal code for them. That's pretty cool. So we're gonna rename this to latitude and longitude. Okay, now here's the thing. Oh, actually, you know what? We can even put like inside a CVS. By oh no, we wanna re-add that postal code here. But in the tooltips, we can even put like, oh, is this store inside a CVS? Man, I did it again. There we go. Postal code. And just name this postal code. Okay. And first, okay. But what if we do want to do that, right? We want to make sure that folks know that this store is inside a Target or inside a CVS. Well, all we have to do is add that banner brand description like we did before. This is banner brand description. I remembered it. That's great. Okay. So I'm going to click this visual, and then I'm going to find banner brand description and just add it to the tooltips as well. and we'll call this location type. So now when I zoom in again and I find, let's say, one in Texas, oh, I can do that by just clicking here and searching for Texas, right? Or let's find all the ones in California. And look, the map changes automatically, zooms right into California, and we're good. There's no targets in California. There's no locations with WIC in California, but that's really ugly. Let's fix that in a second. Okay, so here we have all the locations in California, and if I hover over them, I can see that this is a CVS in Pleasanton. I can see the postal code, and I can see the CVS. But what if what I want to do is not just see everything at scale, or sorry, not just see everything precisely, but everything at scale? What if I want to see how many there are? What if I want to see like the bubble size grow based on how many there are in a particular area? Well, technically, I can't do that with the latitude and longitude. Why? Because of the fact that latitude and longitude is so precise. Unless two of them share the very same latitude and longitude, there's just no way to do that. So what I would have to do is actually switch this to be something like state or city or zip code. What we're going to do to prove that is we're actually going to keep this visual hidden, because we want to be able to use it if we need to draw it for things like bookmarks. It allows you to swap between location based by latitude, location based by zip code. We're not going to get into that with this particular session, but it is something that you can do. So if I just click copy here, copy visual, and then paste it. No, I'm just going to hit Control V, I guess. All right, so I'm going to paste it. And for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this one. I'm going to open the selection pane, and I'm just going to hide it. So here is map. I'm going to rename this to map by lat long. And I'm going to hide it with this little eye. All right, so now I'm going to jump back over here to this visual. I'm going to align it so it's nice and aligned, hopefully. Looks like these guys got a little bit out of alignment here. Oh, now that's going to drive me crazy. Let's take care of that really quick. There we go. And this one too. All right, now everything's aligned. Good, good, good. All right, so now let's align this map to the right and to the bottom there. Good. Let's give it a background, because this is the one we're probably going to use once we do that. And 95% or 90 is our magic number. There we go. Okay. So now what we want to do is we want to make sure, instead of latitude and longitude, that we use something like the address information that we have up here. So we can do it by country, we can do it by state, by city and postal code. Let's start with state. I'm going to search for state, and here's the location. Now look, something really interesting just happened. It forced a bunch of states to go somewhere else in the world. Why? Well, it's because it recognizes these as states in other countries. It's very fascinating, but Power BI seems to do that quite a bit. Amesbury is apparently a city. What is this? India? In India. And that's quite interesting, but it is. Ann Arbor, China doesn't sound as convincing. That definitely doesn't look like an Ann Arbor. However, it is a reality that we constantly have to deal with in Power BI. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that we use something like postal code to make it more precise. So I'm going to add postal code here to make it more precise. And then we also want to make sure that we have our country, right? Because our country filters to the US. So we're adding our country make this a lot more precise? Let's find out. Okay, so it looks like the US is being represented here in Maine. Maybe because that's the first zip code, or the smallest zip code in Maine. That's probably why. But let's drill down into the states and see if we can get a good state drill down. So to drill down, all I have to do is just click right here to go to the next level in the hierarchy. And nope, it looks like it's not doing it. So let's see if we can add a filter to say US only. Does that do anything? No, it does not. So it doesn't want to do anything here. Let's see. How do we get it to only show the states in the US? Legend. What if I switch the state to the legend instead? Oh, but then that's going to make the legend super huge. Nope, we don't want to do that. Let's see. Is it back to Maine? It is back to Maine. Okay. Well, if I don't have lots of these, for example, will it let me? Nope, it keeps saying it's just Maine. So let's see if we can do something. Let's see if we have in the state, in this, yeah, if we have it in the US country. Let's see if we can do state. Oh, we already have the state. We've drilled down into the state. We have the country. Oh, we should be able to add the country first. So let's try adding the country first. So country, location. And then let's add an actual value that'll make the bubble size grow. So if I add something like location ID, which is what I've been using to get unique numbers, bubble size. So if we count distinct, there's nothing by country, it's just one country. So all 1057 are just going to show in the US. But let's see what happens if I add the state now. And I go one level deeper. Oh no. It looks like it's still in the worldwide one. So North Carolina's good. My question is there anything that has like a state but a descriptive one? Address state. Nope. Just that. What if we drill into, instead of drilling down to the next hierarchy, since we have the country, if we drill into, maybe it'll keep everything in the US. Let's find out. So we're going to go back down to the top level, and then we're going to choose drill into. So drill down into this US. Nope, same thing. It does not like it, and it will not give us that, which is not fun. It's not fun. So let's see what we can do here. Okay, so with the magic of editing, I'm back, and I went out and looked on the internet and to past projects I've did, just because I wanted to really get a hold of this problem and resolve it, and hopefully my sleuthing on the internet can save you some time. It turns out that because of the fact that we added postal code, address, cities to our map, we couldn't get it to stay within the confines of the US. It kept trying to find locations around the world that it could very intelligently tell us and place our data. And that's a result of Microsoft Bing. I did read that whenever you pass geographical location, it doesn't go out to Bing to search for anything. It just takes that and maps it. However, when you just pass things like country, postal code, address, city, it'll go out to Bing, try to find a location that's geographic, and then display that on the map. So what I realized is that the visual itself is quite intelligent, and because of the fact that I have address country here, that's what's causing it to do like the whole main thing where it'll put it inside main. As soon as I change this field, I just changed the name to country. Watch what happens. It puts it straight in the middle of the country, and that way I know now that I only have US addresses. So I'll also make sure I name this state, and I'll name this postal code. Very, very precise names, so that hopefully now when I drill down from country into state, now I only get US states. And then here, I should only get US postal codes. So that's a little bit of a trick, I guess. You have to name it after whatever the data represents explicitly. So if you're using other languages like Spanish or German or any other language, you want to make sure that if you're having this issue, that you name it explicitly country, so that Bing returns whatever country you're trying to represent here. Okay, so I'm going to rename this to number of locations. And now we should see number of locations by state. Watch the title change dynamically as I drill up and down. Number of locations by state, which I'm in now. When I drill up, it says by country. When I drill down, by state, and then by zip code or postal code. We can also probably do city. Let's try that. And we'll just name it city. And when we drill down, it does it by city, but this gets a little messy. So I'm gonna go ahead and just remove the city. Instead of having the city up there, why don't we just pull it in the tooltips as the first city. So now, when we drill up to the state, for example, we'll be able to see the first city. And that's just done by alphabetical order, so it's not super useful. But if you drill down into the zip codes, maybe, you'll be able to see multiple locations per zip code as well. And you'll see that the bubble size has really taken effect now. You can see that the bubbles are just a lot bigger for locations that have more. So Florida, for example, has 106 locations, 110 in Texas. We have 8 in Hawaii, so that's a bit smaller number, smaller bubble. Nebraska, etc. All right, so our map visual is good. Now we just make it a little bit smaller. And now we can probably put something right here smack in the middle, maybe something by state. So if I take, let's do a multi-row card right here, and it automatically places it in the available real estate. So that's pretty cool. We're going to go ahead and copy the format and change the background. And then we're just going to do something simple like state. So we'll drag that in. And just number of locations. And we'll put state back in. It looks like I failed to keep it in there. There we go. So let's change that to number of locations. All right, so number of locations by state is all here. All right, so basically what we're going to do is we're going to make this a little bit cleaner by adding a logo, or a bit more presentable at least by adding a logo. I don't believe this map has the background. So let me make sure that this map does have the background. Oh, there's a neat trick right there, by the way, because of the fact that Power BI is responsive in visualizations and it's an interactive report. As soon as I clicked any other visual, now you can see all of the locations. For example, if I click on the 36 in California, or just the Arizona, then we can see only the ones in Arizona, only the 36. And then when I drill down, I should be able to see only the ones that are in Arizona again. So if we put this down all the way to the city, and then we click on something like Connecticut, we'll see only the ones in Connecticut. We can hover over them and see exactly where the city is as well. So that's a neat trick with Power BI. You can do the same thing for other visuals, including if we go down to the city again, this will be kind of interesting. If we go to the time zone and select only Central, you should now see everything that's only in the Central time zone. Same thing for Hawaii's standard time. So we can see all of the ones in Hawaii. Looks like they're all on Oahu. No other islands? Nope, just Oahu. All right, so there's Hawaii Standard Time, Pacific Standard Time, Central again, and Eastern. That's pretty cool. Okay, great. So now we will make sure that our data looks good. Something I did notice as well earlier is the fact that these blanks are showing up. Now, the blank, all it means is that it's a value that just doesn't exist. There are no locations at Target that are also at CVS. That the two just don't mix. They don't mix and match. Furthermore, there are no locations in Connecticut at that have optical clinics. So that also becomes an issue. So the more filters you select, the more blanks you're going to have. Now, how do we just make that a little bit more graceful and have it represent 0? Well, we'll show it over here. So as you remember, the field that I was using to represent all of these numbers was called location ID. So what we're going to do is we're just going to make a version of location ID that's a bit more graceful, a bit more friendly, and it'll always show 0. So to do that, I'm going to create a measure. To do that, I'm going to right click on the data source, and I'm going to say new measure. Then I'm simply going to say location ID friendly equals coalesce of location ID. Oh, where's the location ID? There it is, location ID 0. And it's not happy. Location ID. Okay, why isn't it letting me? Oh, it is letting me. There it is. Oh, got it. Okay, so what I did was I did a count of location ID. So what I really want to do is, because we're using a measure is evaluated for the entire data set with any filters that you want applied. What I technically meant to do was a column. However, I do need to count the number. Because we're counting the number of unique location IDs, I can actually use this for a card. So what I meant to do was actually do something like count distinct or distinct count of location ID. And now it lets me select the location ID column by default because it knows I'm trying to count something. It's an aggregate value, right? So now I say distinct count, but if I replace that, it'll just be blank again. So what I want to do is a graceful one, and I'm going to use coalesce to do so. I'm going to say coalesce, open that, and then substitute. Anytime it finds a blank, it'll substitute it with 0. There's also other tricks for this, like just simply adding 0 to the result. So if you say plus 0, what it means is that if it finds a null, it'll just add 0 to it, and it'll be a graceful 0. I like using COALESCE just because COALESCE is one of my favorite features in SQL Server, in Excel, and in Power BI, so I'd rather use that. All right, so let's try making sure that that works. Okay, great. However, it won't actually take effect until we apply it to all of our cards. So let's go ahead and do so. And a reminder, as you replace these, you're going to have to change, you're going to have to rename them again. So this is going to be locations. We'll keep that in mind. Locations. And if you want to get a little bit lazy like I am, I just copy the name before I do that. And then I rename it. So there you go. Now it's already renamed. I'll copy this one. And when I replace it, I can already just paste the name instead. That saves me a little bit of time, and I won't have to worry about things like typos or simply just reminding myself to change it. Oh, SAP. No, that's Snap is what it's supposed to be. And here. I missed that one, miscopying it. Okay, so we made the changes all to this one, but what about the other page? Oh no, we would have to like duplicate it. No, all you have to do is take every single card right here and copy it to select them all. You can either use your lasso tool like this, or you can just hold control and keep clicking stuff. I'm going to hold control and just keep clicking. I'm going to delete all of these because they have the wrong field that they use. And then we're going to instead use this one. Here's the one that has my graceful one, or my graceful counts. So now let's apply the same filters again. Oh, it looks like I got rid of the state by mistake. Let's put that back. Okay, there we go. All right, so now let's do some crazy, let's look for anything that's in Central Time Zone and is in Illinois. Now you see all of these are zeros instead. So the more filters you apply, instead of being blank in parentheses, now it's just 0. So that's a little bit more graceful if you're going to have this facing the public, for example. It just makes a lot more sense to see blank, or to see 0 instead of blank. It's kind of like null. Null is not really, null is very useful for us developers and DBAs and data nerds, but when you want to present it to folks who are stakeholders or just users of the report, you want to make sure you have a graceful value there. All right, so I think the last thing to do here is to just go get a CVS logo from somewhere. So let's go get CVS logo, and as always, I like to do PNGs because PNGs have transparent backgrounds. So let's see, does this one have a transparent background? It looks like it does. I'm going to go ahead and save it, and I'm going to save it to this CVS folder that we've been in. CVS logo. Oh, that's a JPEG. I don't think it has a transparent background. I'm going to go ahead and back out of that and maybe try to save another one. There's a PNG. I like that. Okay, save. And now we'll go back to the Power BI report. We're going to insert the image, and let's see, CVS logo, there it is. All right, then we have a transparent background, which is good. And we get to bring that up. And let's go ahead and add a title as well. We'll call this CVS Data Analysis, or we'll call it CVS Minute Clinic Analysis. How about that? We could probably bring it down here. We're going to insert some text, and we'll call this Minute Clinic Summary. And then in the next one, we'll call it, another page, we'll call it Minute Clinic Detail. Analysis. Minute Clinic Analysis Summary for this page and detail for the next. All right, let's make this a little bit bigger. Oh, we forgot the S. That's 20. and we'll make this red, bold, and red, just to keep with the theme. There we go. How about right down here? And then this guy we can make something like 14. And let's make this one 20 as well. 20. All right. Let's make this background transparent. Okay. So now we just copy the image, copy the text, bring them over here. And then this is the detail. And last but not least, I want to make sure I give a credits page as well. So what we're going to do is we're just going to duplicate this page because it already has all the neat cool stuff. And then we'll delete everything out of here. And we're done there. And then we're just going to insert a quick shape. Oh no, text box. And we'll say credits. Credits. And first we want to do some link. Let's copy some links over from the Reddit post. Reddit user what was it? Mecha Sparrow, I believe. There's the link. Mecha Sparrow. Yep. And then we'll credit the Kaggle page as well. Kaggle. All right. And we'll create a quick change log here. 3/4/2023. SQL dev DBA. devdba.com. And here we'll say credits. All right, and so there we have it, a fully interactive report. You know what? One last touch I want to do is, let's say I want to just get a lot more information about this from the map, right? Well, what I would be able to do is kind of use this detail page as a bit of a drill down or a drill through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this as a detail page, and I'm going to say detail drill through. Now I'm going to hide that page because I don't really want anyone to access it except from other places within the report. And so if someone wants to be able to drill through by location type, then I'm going to add location type as one of the drill through fields. Check this out. So location type, that was banner, right? Banner description. Banner brand description. I'm going to add that down here to the drill through, and I'm going to make sure it says use as category. And check this out. When I go back to the summary page and I right click here, I say drill through and detail drill through, and it'll only give me CVS locations. Again, I'll go back using this new back arrow that it automatically puts through. And what about the target ones? Or what about the YMass or Navarro ones? If I click on Navarro, let's see if I can get it to open. I want to drill through. And now we have, oh, it looks like I clicked on the YMass by mistake. YMass, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Seems like a EMAS, maybe EMAS. That's pretty cool. So as soon as I click that, it goes to this detail page, but only focuses on the ones that are from EMAS, which is really cool because it means you don't have to go reapply filters anywhere. So I'm going to do the same thing for the state, because the state is something that you can select. So I'm going to say state, and really you can add as many drill through features as you want here. You can add as many drill through fields as you desire. What I've found is that the trick for me is to keep them as uses category instead of summarized. There are special occasions in which summarize is better, but for this particular reason, I usually keep it. So I'm going to do city and country as well, or just city and zip code. Ooh, zip code's going to be a good one, yeah. Or postal code. So there's a postal code, and again, uses category. I'll do the city. And now, let's see if I have anything else in the detail that I want to do it by. Nope, nothing in the detail. All right. So now I can right click on this on these maps here, and I should be able to drill through. There we go, into that particular one. If I go back to the map, go back up to the states, which are right here. Now I should be able to right click on something like Hawaii, drill through, and click the detail, and it'll show me just the Hawaii ones, which is great. It's very cool. All right, so that drill through setup, and that's just a little neat feature, and it didn't take me very long to set up, but it's really useful to folks who are viewing this from their phones or just wanting to get really detailed information very quickly. And you can do that with entire reports or entire report pages. It doesn't have to be a grid page. It can also be with like a summary page just like this, but just drill through from somewhere else. All right, so that is the report. I believe we should be able to publish this out now and interact. I'm going to keep interacting with this report to see if I can find any other nuances like the ones that we've found so far. But this is quite an interesting data set. And if you have any data sets that are directory based or location based, hopefully this gives you a better idea of how to better utilize them, or at least how to put together a quick report that showcases all of that locational data that you have, or that informational data that you have. So thanks for joining me on another data discovery adventure. Please feel free to submit it in the comments or message me through my website, SQLDevDBA.com. If you have any ideas for future episodes, you can also go to my PollGap room, which is pollgap.com/room/SQLDevDBA, and you can feel free to post a message there for any future data discoveries that you'd want to see in future episodes. So that concludes another episode of Data Discoveries. Thanks very much for joining me as I discovered this CVS Minute Clinic data. Thanks so much to all the folks who have subscribed so far, and thanks everyone for watching. I will see you next time. Take care.